Empress Neris's claw-tipped fingers pressed the imperial seal into the shimmering treaty foil, the chamber's crystal amplifiers humming as the binding took hold. The air thickened with the scent of ionized incense, and her court, arrayed in rigid tiers of iridescent scales and embroidered robes, drew a collective breath. Famine clawed at the outer provinces, rebel fleets massed beyond the nebula veils, and this pact with the distant human collective promised grain silos and cruiser access lanes. But the price, a ceremonial union, her lineage entwined with this off-world envoy, Commander Jonah Hale. Standing resolute before her throne, she lifted her gaze, mandibles clicking softly in ritual closure. The Catalra Imperium accepts these terms. Let the stars witness. Jonah Hale inclined his head, not a bow, but a precise mirror of her own ancestral salute, shoulders squared in the envoy's stark uniform of woven alloy threads. Murmurs rippled through the hall. Humans were soft-skinned anomalies, pack hunters from a backwater fringe. Their worlds uncharted until desperation had driven her diplomats to them. Yet he moved without hesitation, reciting the counter-rite in flawless high Catal, his voice steady as a shield wall. By the collective's oath, we stand allied. Endurance shared, fates bound. Neris's primary advisor, Lord Varrock, shifted at her side, his frilled crest flaring in unease. The ceremony demanded he present the chalice next, the vessel of mingled essences, symbolizing unity. But as Varrock extended it, his grip faltered under the weight of tradition's glare, and a droplet of the sanctified nectar spilled onto the dais, staining the ancestral mosaics. Gasps echoed. Such an error invoked the old auguries. Spilled lifeblood foretold fracture. Jonah's eyes flicked to the spill, then to Varrock, reading the advisor's rigid freeze. Without pause, he stepped forward, not groveling, not commanding, but as if correcting a misaligned formation in the field. Lord Varrock, he said evenly, the chalice aligns to the third meridian, not the second, for unions beyond bloodkin. Permit me. His hand steadied the vessel with engineered calm, rotating it precisely while murmuring the corrective incantation in Catal. The nectar gleamed renewed, unspilled in intent, if not in fact. Varrock recoiled, spines bristling, but the court held silent. Neris felt a flicker, not outrage but intrigue. This human had parsed the protocol's subtlety. The meridian shift buried in rites predating the last convergence war, a detail even her lore masters debated. He hadn't deferred, he'd integrated, as if the error were a jammed relay in a starship core, fixed by right of competence. She accepted the chalice from him directly, their fingers brushing, his warm calloused skin against her scaled coolness. The contact sent an unbidden shiver through her crests. Well discerned, Commander Hale, she intoned, sipping first, then offering it back. He drank without flinching at the nectar's acrid bite, a toxin that felled lesser species. The treaty sealed, the court erupted in formal chants, but Neris's mind lingered on his steadiness. Dismissal had colored her pre-meeting briefs, humans as fleeting opportunists, their endurance mere rumor. Yet here he stood, unflinching amid the ritual's weight, correcting without presumption. Guarded curiosity stirred beneath her sovereign mask. What drove such precision in an envoy bred for shadows, not thrones? As the assembly dispersed, Varrock leaned close, voice a hiss. Majesty. Protocol forbids private discourse before the full reception. The daughter awaits your address, and factions murmur. Lys, her heir, perched silently on the dais edge, wide eyes fixed on the human with the unblinking focus of youth. Neris met her daughter's gaze. Then Jonah's. Protocol bends to necessity, Lord Varrock.
Commander Hale, attend me in the solar sanctum. We will
clarify the Union's rights. Varrock's mandibles parted in shock. Empress, objection noted, dismissed. Her tone brooked no fracture. Jonah followed without question, his stride matching hers through the vaulted corridors, where servitors bowed low and tapestries whispered of ancient pacts. The solar sanctum's dome admitted fractured starlight, bathing the chamber in prismatic glow. Neris sealed the doors, turning to him with measured poise. You presume much, human, in correcting my advisor. Protocol preserves the pact, Empress, Jonah replied, hands clasped at ease. The spill risked omen chants from the traditionalists. A minor adjustment ensured continuity. No boast, just fact, his eyes meeting hers levelly, dark, unyielding, yet devoid of challenge. She circled him slowly, assessing. Humans lacked the crest frills for true emotional read, but his posture spoke volumes. Relaxed vigilance, like a sentinel scanning horizons.
How? Study, practice, adaptation.
He shrugged faintly, a human tic she'd noted in hollows.
Your archives are public to allies. I cross-referenced with convergence-era variants.
The third meridian fits interclan unions, logical for this. Neris paused, frills half unfurling in surprise. Her own scholars hoarded such lore, parsing it wrote through cycles. He had connected domains, history, symbolism, politics, in moments. Logical, she echoed, a regal smile cracking her formality. A soldier's mind? Reconnaissance commander once. Systems engineer now. Patterns emerge across fields. He glanced to the star map console flickering nearby. Like your nebula blockades, efficient but rigid. Humans layer redundancies. Intrigue deepened to something warmer, a personal tether forming amid the political web.
She gestured to the console.
Demonstrate. He approached without hesitation, fingers dancing over the alien interface, adaptable, multitasking as he queried famine projections while noting fleet vectors. Here, reroute 2 grain convoys through auxiliary lanes, sync with your cruiser patrols, cuts delay by 17%. Her frills flared fully now, amazement veiled behind command. Varak's projections had demanded moons. This human wove solutions from threads she'd deemed fixed. A thunderous roar shattered the moment, chants swelling from the palace forecourt, amplified by protest drums. Hollow feeds flickered to life unbidden. Traditionalist factions, led by High Custodian Thalor, massed at the gates. Interdiction of the First Veil, their leader bellowed, banners whipping in the wind. No scaled blood with soft flesh filth. The ancestors forbid it. Empire falls to abomination. Neris's blood surged, mandibles locking. Thalor's bloc, purists clinging to isolationist edicts, had simmered since the treaty's leak. Now they stormed the sanctity of her seat, citing the ancient ban on interspecies bonds, a relic from plague wars when alien plagues had culled her forebears. Jonah tensed beside her, scanning the feeds. Strength in numbers, 500, organized. Non-lethal dispersal? They test my resolve. She activated the throne link, voice booming across the palace arrays. Custodian Thalor, you breach sovereign ground. Disperse or face the Veil's judgment. Thalor's hologram snarled back. The treaty profanes our line. Lys's future, your throne, tainted by this, mammal. Lys's name ignited fury. Neris slammed the gate's command, massive alloy slabs grinding shut with seismic finality. Palace secured. Summon the guard cohorts. And prepare the grand reception hall. Commander Hale receives formal honors. Tonight, Varak burst in via priority channel, crest ablaze. Majesty, reception now invites escalation. Thalor will. The treaty's primacy supersedes interdiction. She cut him. Eyes on Jonah. We proceed. Let the court witness unity unbroken. As servitors scrambled to array the hall, Neris turned to the human, her voice lowering, propriety cracking into alliance's first spark. You stand with me in this? Jonah nodded, a quiet resolve mirroring her own. Allied fates, Empress. As sworn, outside, drums pounded defiance. Within, 2 sovereign wills, scaled sovereign and unyielding envoy, collided not in fracture, but forge. The treaty inked, gates barred, their partnership ignited amid the storm. Lord Varak's claws scraped the obsidian council slab, his voice slicing through the chamber's charged hush. Empress Neris, the treaty bears your mark, yet the breach yawns wide. House Thalor nominates Lord Kren as ceremonial consort, pureblood untainted, his lineage woven into our rights since the first ascendancy. Let the vote commence. Nullify this. Neris sat enthroned at the chamber's apex, her scaled crest flaring subtly under the vaulted glow orbs, every ridge of her form a testament to unyielding command. The air hummed with the low thrum of factional murmurs, Thalor's block shifting like sand vipers, her loyalists coiling in counter. Drums echoed faintly from the outer walls, a relentless pulse against the encroaching rival fleets. Jonah Hale stood at the treaty podium below, his human frame erect yet unobtrusive, eyes scanning the projected ceremonial ledger with quiet focus. She had inked the pact mere cycles ago, binding her Imperium's survival to this off-worlder envoy. Now the court clawed to unravel it. Proceed with the nomination, Neris intoned, her voice a regal cascade, laced with the formal cadences of ancestral decree. Propriety held, but cracks spidered beneath, fatigue from endless vigils, the weight of Lys's watchful gaze from the shadowed dais. Her daughter, the heir, observed in silence, her young scales iridescent under the light, a living emblem of what this alliance must preserve. Varak's proposal was no mere ploy. It exploited the ledger's ritual gaps where human frailty, shortened lifespan, alien biology, could be framed as desecration, not in haste but with the steady rhythm of one piecing a fractured mosaic. He had arrived as envoy, ceremonial spouse in name, but his bearing spoke of deeper forges, reconnaissance scars hidden under diplomatic weave. Nerys watched him sidelong, her multifaceted eyes narrowing. The ledger flickered, its ancestral glyphs corrupted by sabotage or age, lines of binding right blurred into ambiguity. Kren's supporters leaned forward, crests high, sensing victory. "My Lady Empress," Jonah said softly, his translated voice carrying without deference only clarity. He gestured to the projection, isolating a tangled glyph cluster. "If I may, this passage, the third binding corollary, references the enduring vessel of the line. It's been cross-wired with an obsolete purity clause from the Fifth Reformation. Recalibrating the matrix, the chamber stilled as the hologram stabilized under his touch. Glyphs realigned, flowing into coherence. The rite demanded not blood purity but resilience proven in trial, endurance across cycles, adaptability to the rite's flux. Jonah traced the correction verbally, his words weaving human logic through Katauro ritual without presumption. Here, the original intent binds the consort to sustain the line through adversity, not ancestry alone. Voiding it now would unravel the entire treaty scaffold. Varric hissed, tail-lashing. "Human presumption. The ledger speaks for itself, does it?" Nerys cut in, her tone sharpening like a blade drawn. She rose fractionally, scales shimmering with restrained ire. Was her prior contempt for this species, a dismissal of their fragile forms, their brief spans, rooted in wisdom, or the convenience of court whispers? Jonah's intervention was no flourish. He had unraveled the corruption in breaths, spotting patterns her archivists had glossed over in rote scans. Humans, she recalled from intercepted dossiers, thrived on such chaos, juggling variables, enduring scrutiny without falter. Her gaze met his, steady, unblinking. "Envoy Hale speaks truth. Audit the ledger fully. Archivist Prime. Summon the verification rights." The advisor bowed low, tendrils quivering as the chamber erupted in factional hisses. Jonah stepped back, expression neutral, as if deciphering sacred corruptions were mere days' work. Nerys felt a flicker, not weakness, but the stir of reassessment. Competence like his was no accident. It bridged rifts her court could not. As the audit probes hummed to life, projecting verified streams, Nerys addressed the council. "Envoy Hale has illuminated procedural integrity. Henceforth he holds standing to speak on such matters as consort-bound." Murmurs rippled, respect edged with unease. Varroc's eyes narrowed, but the vote stalled, Thalor's momentum fracturing. Jonah inclined his head to her, a gesture of mutual accord, no triumph in it. In that exchange, formality thinned. A thread of personal regard wove through the political weave. Liz shifted on her dais, her gaze lingering on the human with nascent curiosity, but Nerys quelled the distraction. Duty first, the audit confirmed. No loophole remained. Kren's nomination withered, factional votes scattering like ash. Yet the chamber's doors ground open before triumph settled, admitting emissary Zorath of the Bexari Concord, neighboring power, long coveting Catalra border worlds. His form loomed, chitinous plates gleaming, multifaceted eyes whirring in mechanical outrage. "Empress Nerys, the Concord demands extradition of this human interloper. He breaches our mutual pacts, spying precedents from his world's covert annals. Release him, or face blockade escalation." The drums outside swelled, a warlike thunder. Zorath's entourage bristled, energy fields crackling. Jonah stood unmoved, but Nerys sensed the peril. Vexari claims could fracture the alliance before it breathed, painting her as weak to courts abroad. She rose fully now, crest fully flared, voice booming with sovereign steel. "The envoy is under imperial bond, his role sanctified by our rights. Extradition is denied. Sovereign protection invokes the ancestral veil. No force shall touch him." Zorath's plates clicked in protest. "This insults the Concord, insults lies in your demand," Nerys retorted, formality cracking into command. "Withdraw, or test our gates." Guards materialized at her gesture, elite lances, scales oiled for battle, flanking Jonah as they escorted him toward the inner arcades. Varroc watched with hooded eyes, the Lore's block seething, but none dared counter her word.
Jonah walked beside the guards without protest, glancing back once.
"Your protection honors the pact, Empress. I'll fortify the ledger's defenses against further interpretations." Nerys nodded curtly, the weight of her decision settling like forged alloy. Outside, drums pounded defiance. Within, a ledger corrected, a vote threatened, and she had staked her word for one human safety. Lys's eyes followed him too, the air's silence speaking volumes. Partnership, once convenience, now bore teeth, mutual, unyielding. In the arcade's shadowed vault, Jonah paused as guards posted at his quarters threshold. "No need for such vigilance," he said mildly to the captain, a scarred veteran named Thalix. I've bunked in worse sieges. Thalix's crest twitched. Amusement?
Skepticism. Humans endure, they say.
But Vexery blades do not. Nor do we yield easily. Jonah's smile was brief, genuine, bridging the gap with quiet pack bondees. Neris observed from an upper balcony, unseen, her mind turning. Contempt had been convenient, yes, but informed? No longer. This human's pattern sight, his resilience in unraveling sabotage amid crisis, outpaced her court's rote vigilance. He multitasked the ledger's flux while fielding glares, adapting Catalra glyphs to human heuristics without strain. And in refusing extradition, she had chosen not fealty, but alliance, his competence indispensable. Yet doubt lingered. Varak plotted in shadows. Zorath's fleets massed. The Imperium teetered, Lys's future the fulcrum. Jonah entered his quarters, already querying auxiliary systems for redundancies. Neris turned away, resolve hardening. They would forge through this storm together, or shatter. The council reconvened as twilight bled through crystal slits, Varak pressing anew. Empress the human's corrections. House Thaler calls for purity reaffirmation. Neris's tail curled precisely. Audacious saves empires. The ledger stands verified. Vote on the treaty as inked. Factions clashed in holographic tallies, edges razor sharp. Procedural note: deflux stabilizers in the right matrix mirror your shield arrays. Align them, and the binding holds against any external strain. His suggestion clicked. Simple, elegant, blending human improvisation with Cataltra precision. Archivists implemented it seamlessly, amazement flickering in their tendrils. Varak yielded ground, the vote tipping narrowly to affirm. Neris felt the shift, not just survival, but strength renewed. Jonah's humility masked depths, endurance in endless debate, emotional read of court undercurrents her advisors missed. He formed bonds without effort, Thalix now nodding camaraderie. Zorath's parting transmission hissed through comms, the interloper remains your peril. But Neris had posted double guards, lances, humming. Her word was staked, retreat impossible. In quiet aftermath, as Lys approached her privately, the air whispered, "Mother," the whispers in the halls, they call him a shadow operative, planted to unravel us from within. Empress Neris's crest feathers tightened imperceptibly as Lys's words hung in the shadowed alcove, the child's wide eyes reflecting the torchlight's flicker. She drew her daughter close, one clawed hand steady on the young heir's shoulder, masking the coil of tension in her gut. Hope from the envoy's earlier aid lingered, fragile as dawn mist, but court intrigue was a venom that struck without mercy. Hush now, my light, we face it together. The summons came before the next cycle's light fully crested the spires. Her robes whispering like restrained thunder, Jonah Hale at her flank as protocol demanded. The air hummed with the low thrum of restraint fields, muting the sharper sense of agitation from the assembled nobles. Lord Varak, her rival from the outer rim houses, rose first, his scales gleaming with false polish, a data crystal clutched in his primary grip. Imperatrix, Varak intoned, voice smooth as oiled venom. Allegations demand air. Transcripts from neutral scanners. Your human consort, Commander Hale. Accessed restricted nexus codes during the grid fluctuation. Spy patterns match Terran covert doctrine. The treaty bleeds our sovereignty. Murmurs rippled through the council, crests flaring in accusation. Neris's gaze swept them, unyielding, her posture a bastion. Jonah stood silent beside her, human frame erect, expression a mask of polite attentiveness. No defiance, no plea. She noted the subtle flex of his jaw, the way his eyes tracked Varak's gestures without a blink. He does not flinch. Good. Present your evidence, Lord Varak, Neris commanded, her tone brooking no delay. The council hears all, judges true. Varak projected the crystal's feed, grainy overlays of Jonah at a terminal, fingers dancing across alien interfaces, rerouting surges moments before the palace matrix could cascade. He moved without clearance, knew our failsafes as if birthed them. This is no envoy's clumsiness, it's infiltration. Jonah inclined his head slightly. With respect, Lord, those were emergency overrides. The fluctuation threatened core stability. I contained it. Contained? Varak scoffed, his secondary limbs gesturing sharply. You presume our engineers incompetent? Or do you reveal their intent? Neris silenced the chamber with a raised talon. The matrix holds. Accusations without breach are wind. But scrutiny serves. Before rebuttals could form, the chamber shuddered. Lights flickered, a deep groan echoing from the walls as secondary alarms wailed. Power matrix breach, escalating. Varric's eyes widened. Neris felt the chill of true peril grip her spines. Sabotage. Not fluctuation. Deliberate. Evacuate non-essentials, she barked, already moving. Jonah was faster, bolting toward the access hatch without a word, toolkit materializing from his diplomatic satchel like an extension of his arm. Neris followed. Lyssa's safety detail sweeping the air away as protocol held, the engineering sublevel reeked of ozone and melting conduits, sparks arcing wildly from the primary regulator. Katalra technicians scrambled, their multi-limbed forms juggling probes and seals, voices overlapping in frantic coordination. "Containment breach at Node 7, one shouted, scales paling. Jonah plunged into the chaos, assessing with a sweep that cataloged damage faster than the diagnostic drones. Reroute auxiliary feeds from sectors 3 and 9, cross-link them manually. I'll bridge the gap. A senior engineer, Captain Fowler, bristled, his crest snapping high. "Human, this is Katalra Matrix, your primitives." "Captain," Jonah cut in calmly, already prying a panel with improvised leverage from his belt. "Your rote seals are fracturing under harmonic feedback. We need a dynamic shunt. Watch." He worked without pause, one hand splicing conduits while the other tapped overrides on a handheld slate, eyes flicking between 3 readouts. Sweat beaded his brow, but his breath stayed even, movements precise amid the heat haze. Neris watched from the threshold, her guards forming a cordon. Jonah multitasked seamlessly, coordinating 2 techs with clipped commands, adapting a human field expedient to their crystal lattice by pattern-matching stress fractures no one else had linked to thermal echoes from the outer vents. Authoral's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Impossible. That junction defies linear bridging. "How do you see it?" "Patterns repeat across systems," Jonah replied, voice steady as he fused the shunt. "Your matrix echoes old Earth grids, predictable under stress." "Hold this steady," the engineer complied, awe cracking his professionalism. The arc stabilized, power humming back to equilibrium.
Cheers erupted from the crew, but Jonah waved it off, wiping grime from his hands.
"Temporary. Root cause is upstream. Tampered relays. We trace it now." Neris stepped forward, her presence quelling the sublevel's din. "Captain Thaler, report. Improvise a procedure our simulations rejected. Contained what would have blacked the palace for cycles, and he endured the heat flux. Humans lack our dermal cooling, yet he pressed on." She nodded, decision crystallizing. Varrock's allegations paled against this competence. "Independent review of the sabotage. Full audit, no house biases. Military engineers coordinate directly with Commander Hale. His access is cleared." Varrock, arriving breathless at the sublevel's edge, sputtered protest, but Neris quelled him with a glance. Trust, signaled within bounds, demanded a gesture. "Aid Lyra." She summoned her most discreet royal attendant, a sharp-eyed sub-officer with unsworn loyalty. "You embed with Commander Hale. Observe, assist, report only to me." Lyra bowed low, her feathers sleek with readiness. "As you decree, Imperatrix." Jonah met Neris's eyes then, a flicker of gratitude unspoken, but she saw the human restraint, humble, not triumphant. Something stirred in her, a crack in the formal divide, not mere utility but partnership glimpsed. By midday the containment held, but word of the sabotage leaked like plasma from a hull breach. Public channels erupted, holo feeds proclaiming 4-in-hand ignites palace doom. Fueled by Varrock's allies. Unrest swelled in the lower spires, protests clashing with enforcers, chants demanding the treaty's end. Neris monitored from her command dais, Lys at her side, the air's small claws gripping her robe. "The people fear shadows, mother," Lys murmured. "They shall see light," Neris replied, rising. She activated the Imperial broadcast, her image beaming to every nexus. "Citizens of the Imperium," she declared, voice resonant with ancestral steel, "a coward's sabotage tests our matrix, but it holds. Proof of plots against our stability demands vigilance. I impose a temporary curfew. Enforcers secure the spires." And to root this treachery, she paused, letting the weight settle. "Commander Jonah Hale leads the technical inquiry into palace security. His proven hand stabilizes what others falter. Question not my command. Witness its fruit." Gasps echoed through the monitors. Nobles stunned. Crowds murmuring. Varrock's feed cut abruptly, his influence checked. Jonah, already at a secure terminal with Lyra and Thalor, glanced up at the broadcast, surprise softening his features before resolve reclaimed them. In the dais' quiet, Neris felt Lys's grip ease. The human had not sought this mantle, it was thrust upon his competence. Thalor's earlier awe replayed in her mind. The engineer's frantic research into Terran endurance thresholds via his wrist link, mandibles agape at baseline human tolerances. "They dismiss until they cannot." And she? The crack widened, respect edged with something warmer, personal. Duty bound them, but his quiet capability forged the link. As enforcers fanned out under curfew hush, Jonah's team traced the sabotage filament, a severed relay laced with exotic suppressors. Varrock's house sigil faint, but damning. Lyra reported directly. He connects relay decay to atmospheric vents, patterns no cattle remodel predicted. And he bonds with Fowler, sharing ration gel mid-crisis, easing the captain's doubt. Neris allowed a rare private smile. The alliance endured, accusations aired and contained. A human now anchored palace security, a ruler's calculated trust, blooming toward true accord. But unrest simmered beyond the spires, and Varrock's silence promised retaliation. Competence alone would not suffice. Partnership must deepen. Lord Varrock's crest flared crimson as he thrust a crystalline tablet forward, its holographic seal pulsing with the weight of formal indictment. Empress Neris, your impartiality frays like frayed battle silk. The human's unchecked access to palace vaults compromises the sacred chain of succession. We move to restrict your wartime edicts until a rite of purity clears this shadow. Maris's mandibles clicked once, a measured restraint amid the chamber's rising murmurs. The High Council encircled her dais in a ring of obsidian pillars, their armored forms rigid under the vaulted dome, where ancestral banners hung like watchful ghosts. Liz sat motionless at her right, the girl's iridescent scales dimmed by the gravity of eyes upon her, the living emblem of the line Varrock now sought to isolate. Jonah Hale stood at the chamber's edge, human posture unyielding yet unobtrusive, his dark uniform blending into the shadows as if he belonged to no faction at all. She inhaled the chamber's metallic tang, laced with the acrid edge of factional sweat. Varrock's ploy was no surprise. His house had long hungered for the throne's echo, but invoking the human twisted the knife toward her core. The motion is noted, Lord Varrock, she intoned, voice resonant through the amplifiers woven into her throne, yet precedent demands evidence, not whispers. Speak it plain, or withdraw. Varrock's eyes narrowed, multifaceted pupils glinting. The envoy's logs show him probing secure relays, unauthorized, intimate. He anchors security now, Empress. A consort who tinkers like a dockside mechanic? The Imperium fractures while you indulge this. Novelty. Murmurs swelled. Neris felt the council's gaze sharpen, probes of loyalty testing her resolve. Jonah shifted subtly, his hand brushing a concealed panel at his belt, a gesture she alone noted from her perch. He'd mentioned anomalies earlier, faint signals ghosting the palace nets, but she'd dismissed them as echoes of the outer sieges. Now, as Varrock droned on, Jonah's fingers danced over a wrist-mounted slate, eyes flicking to readouts only he could parse. Your consort, Varrock pressed, has breached protocols thrice this cycle. Restrict your powers, convene the right. Enough. Jonah's voice cut through, calm as polished alloy, drawing every crest to flare. He stepped forward, slate extended. With respect, Lord Varrock, those breaches traced an encrypted beacon pulsing from sublevel 9. It's live now, broadcasting palace schematics to off-world relays. Korvath signatures, if my decrypt holds. Neris leaned forward, her primary eyes locking on the slate's projection, a pulsing node map, threads of data snaking from a maintenance duct beneath Lys's private wing. Jonah continued, voice steady, unraveling the weave without flourish. Multi-spectrum burst every 47 seconds. Masked as routine maintenance pings, I cross-referenced with siege patterns. Korvath agitators use the same cipher. It's coordinating a snatch. Entry via the east vents, exfil through the undercroft. Target profile matches the air's movements. Lys's breath hitched, a faint tremor Neris felt through the throne's arm. Varrock paled, his crest folding inward. Preposterous. A human fabrication. Verify it yourself. Jonah tapped the slate, beaming the decrypt key to the council nexus. Probes hummed as data flooded their implants. Gasps rippled. One elder recoiled, mandibles agape. Neris's mind raced, piecing the peril. Sublevel 9. Lys's play chambers, unguarded in the quiet hours. The beacon had pulsed for days, unnoticed by her finest cryptographers, who favored rote sweeps over this human's intuitive leaps. Jonah had juggled it amid anchoring security, decrypting alien code, mapping palace vents he'd studied in a single briefing cycle, predicting the abduction from patterns no cattle raw mind had linked. Ordinary vigilance, he'd called it when she questioned his late nights. But it had shielded her daughter. Her appraisal shifted, a tectonic realignment beneath regal poise. This was no ceremonial bauble. Jonah Hale was a blade honed in shadows, wielding intellect like a commander's feint. Value? He was indispensable. A partner whose humility masked depths her court could not fathom. Rise the motion no further, Neris commanded, voice thunderous. Counselors straightened. Lord Varrock, your faction's operative hid this beacon in their own quarter logs. Confirm it. The human's diligence exposed what your vigilance missed. I stake my crest on his authenticity. Jonah Hale serves the Imperium as envoy and more. Varak's form quivered, fury warring with calculation. Empress, this. A shriek pierced the dome. Disruptor whined from the upper galleries. Neris lunged, instincts flaring as a plasma bolt seared the air where her throne had been. Shards of pillar exploded. Counselors dove, crests blazing alarm. The shot clipped Varak's shoulder, hurling him back in a spray of cauterized scales. Jonah moved like liquid shadow, tackling Liss behind the dais as a second bolt cratered the floor. Neris rolled to cover, drawing her sidearm in fluid motion, firing upward into the assassin's perch. The figure, a cloaked officer from Varak's retinue, jerked and plummeted, dead before impact. Chaos reigned, guards swarmed, stasis field snapping active. Neris rose, shielding Jonah and Liss with her frame as she scanned the galleries. Her daughter clung to the human's side, wide-eyed but unharmed. Jonah's arm encircled her protectively, his free hand already relaying sniper traces to security nets. Secure the chamber, Neris barked. Probes linked. Data surged. The assassin bore Varak's houseglyph, tied to the beacon's origin. Korvath strings pulled from within. Varak's silence had masked coordination, not retreat. She faced the stunned council, blood-flecked scales gleaming. This conspiracy spans factions and foes. Purge the implicated, Varak's officers, the beacon tenders, all detained pending right of severance. The alliance stands unbroken. The human has proven its steel. Barak groaned from the floor, medics converging. His eyes met hers, defiance cracking into dread. Neris turned to Jonah, voice low amid the clamor. You saw the shot's arc before I fired. How? Pattern from the beacon's burst rhythm, he replied simply, helping Liss to her feet. Trajectories matched, basic recon math, humble, as always. Yet his eyes held hers a beat longer, a flicker of shared gravity. She nodded once, mandibles softening. Then bring that math to my private war council. As confidential strategic advisor, the Imperium needs your sight. He inclined his head, respect mirroring hers. At your command, Empress. Liss squeezed his hand, a child's trust bridging chasms. Neris watched a warmth uncoiling in her core, not mere duty, but a cord. A beacon traced, a plot unraveled, and she had shielded the human as fiercely as her child. Unrest simmered beyond, but now partnership armored them both. Neris's claws tightened on the armrest as the hollow display erupted in crimson alerts, enemy signatures blooming like venomous blooms across the outer rim. Intoned Admiral Vexer, his frills quivering with restrained fury. Korvath dreadnoughts linking with the mutineer squadrons, blockade sealed at Relay Prime. Internal garrisons on 3 worlds report defections timed to the hour. The chamber thrummed with the low growl of gathering officers, Liss still clutching Jonah's hand at the periphery, her wide eyes fixed on the flickering map. Neris rose, her mantle rippling like shadowed silk, silencing the unrest with a single raised talon. Partnership armored them, yes, but this was war's true talon at her throat. Mobilization orders cascaded from her Neuralink Imperial cruisers to scramble, reserves from the core worlds diverted. Yet without piercing that blockade, her fleets would fracture against coordinated fire, mutinies ripping the heart from her realm. Jonah stepped forward, his human frame unyielding amid the towering Catalra, voice steady as hull plating. Empress, a full assault scatters our strength. The relays are the nerve cluster. Sever those, and their coordination unravels. I can lead a sortie. Small team, stealth insertions. We've mapped the weak points from intercepted bursts. Vexar's frills flared in instinctive rebuke. Human tactics. Against Korvath arrays hardened by 3 cycles of siege tech? But Neris silenced him with a glance, her gaze locking on Jonah. He met it without flinching, not with arrogance but the quiet assurance of one who had bent worse odds in forgotten fields. She had seen his mind trace the beacon plot, unravel intrigues her own analysts grazed by rote. Now this. Speak your plan, she commanded, formal tones cracking just enough to draw him closer. He gestured to the display, fingers dancing across auxiliary nodes with multitasking grace, pulling schematics, cross-referencing mutineer manifests, plotting insertion vectors while murmuring contingencies to his 2 human aides. Field engineering breach. We adapt surplus probe drones as decoys, laced with improvised EMP bursts from salvaged Imperial capacitors. My team slips through the outer pickets, small unit infill, hit the primary relays with precision charges. No Grand Fleet push needed. Admiral Vexer leaned in, mandibles clicking. Impossible. Those relays self-seal under assault. Your primitives lack the neural sync for our jammers. Jonah's lips quirked, not mocking, but patient. We've jury-rigged human field mods before. Patterns the same across domains. Connect the power flux here. He traced a line no Katalra eye had linked, to overload their failsafes. Takes endurance, not just sync. We go in quiet, multitask the egress. Neris waited, her core pulsing with the old calculus. Unleash the grand fleet blind, courting annihilation, or stake her line on this outsider's ingenuity. Lys's small claws dug into his sleeve, trust unmarred by doubt. Risk the child heir in the storm? No, but Jonah's intel burned clear now, a novel weave of threads her warriors approached only in rigid phalanxes. Targeted strike? She decreed, voice like forged alloy. Jonah Hale commands the sortie. Imperial support vectors on his mark. The operational center hummed as Neris descended to the tactical nexus, her presence parting the press of aides like a blade through mist. She positioned at Jonah's shoulder, close enough to feel the steady rhythm of his breath, human warmth a stark counterpoint to her chilled resolve. No mere observer, this was concession made manifest, her authority flowing through him like ancestral blood. Direct them, she murmured, low for his ears alone. My fleets bend to your relays. His nod was brief gratitude unspoken, as he issued crisp orders. Human aides fanned out, relaying to mixed Katalra human strike teams. Screens bloomed with insertions, shuttles ghosting through debris fields, Jonah's voice threading calm through chaos. Team Alpha, multitask the drone swarm. Faint left, rig the EMP on my vector. Beta, endurance hold on exfil. We've got fallback patterns linked. Vexer watched, frills twitching in disbelief, as Jonah juggled feeds, engineering overrides blooming under his hands. Alien jammers bent by creative bypasses no rote protocol predicted. A Korvath relay flickered, then shattered in silent fire. Then the storm broke. Hollow feeds across the Imperium ignited with agitprop bursts. Spectral images of Neris yielding her throne to the pale strategist, accusations scrolling in ancestral script. Sovereignty bartered to human whims. The Empress forsakes Katalra blood for alien stratagems amid blockade's noose. Faction lord sigils flashed endorsement mutineer worlds amplifying the cry. The chamber erupted, officers hissing, aides recoiling, Vexar's mandibles gaping in outrage. Sedition, one snarled. She risks the line for this bondmate's folly. Neris felt the propriety fracture, raw fury coiling beneath her regal mask. They saw surrender where she glimpsed salvation. Jonah's quiet competence threading her frayed command where rigid honor faltered. Lys shrank against her leg, but the human's hand steadied the girl without pause, his focus unbroken on the relays. She activated the Imperial broadcast nexus, her image flooding every feed, every garrison, every wavering heart. Mantle flared wide, voice thunder across the void. Hear your Empress. Commander Jonah Hale leads by my decree. The relays fall to his strike, sanctioned under Imperial law. His humans fight as my own, their blood oath mine. Challenge this, and you defy ancestral right itself. Uproar crashed back, frills lashing, claws scraping stone. But she held, gaze pinned to Jonah's screens. A second relay imploded, then the third. Blockade cohesion splintered as mutineer links went dark. Cheers pierced the din from forward observers, Vexar's frills drooping in stunned recalibration. By the ancestors it unravels. Jonah exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow, humble fatigue etching lines no Katalra warrior would admit after such toil. Blockade's broken. Fleets can punch through. Neris turned to him, the warmth from Lys's earlier trust now a steady flame in her core. Not attraction's blaze, but respect's forge, forged in crisis, equal to her own guarded steel. Public fury raged on the feeds, faction whispers coiling tighter, yet her endorsement stood unbowed, partnership's armor gleaming amid the storm. Neris's crest flared subtly as she met Jonah's steady gaze, the chamber's vast dome echoing with the shuffle of armored counselors filing in. The fleet stands down, she said, voice a silken command cutting through the murmurs. But the treaty demands ratification now, before the Vipers strike again. Jonah nodded once, his human frame unyielding beside her throne dais, the faint scent of recycled ship air still clinging to his uniform. The Imperial Council assembled in serried ranks below, their iridescent scales shifting in the holographic glow of tactical feeds. Victory over the rebel armada hung in the air like charged plasma, but succession whispers, fueled by Lys's near loss, coiled through the ranks. Conservative elders, their manes dulled by age, eyed Jonah with scaled lids narrowing, while progressives leaned forward, frills quivering in anticipation. High Counselor Varak rose first, his voice a gravel rasp honed by decades of border skirmishes. Empress, the crisis exposed fractures. The air safety demands we revisit the treaties, human clause. A consort from beyond the veil. It dilutes our bloodline, invites chaos. Murmurs rippled, approval crests blooming among the old guard. Neris's tail tip flicked once, precise as a blade's edge. She felt the weight of ancestral eyes in the vaulted murals above, judging. Jonah remained silent at her side, scanning the chamber with that quiet human focus, reading postures, not proclamations. He sees the threads I must weave aloud. Before she could counter, an aide's chime pierced the air. Priority from the vanquisher, rival Admiral hails. Surrender terms pending. Let it link here, Neris commanded, gesturing to the central hololith. The council stilled as the projection bloomed. Admiral Kresh of the secessionists, his battle-scarred frigate looming in split view, mandibles clicking in defeat's bitterness. Imperium vessel, he growled through the translator. We yield hulls and crews. But guarantees, your fleet's wrath was unforeseen. No reprisals, no purges. Jonah stepped forward unbidden, his voice calm, threading English through the universal protocol with effortless cadence. Neris watched, pulse quickening. Humans spoke without frill or roar, yet his words landed like grapples on hull metal. Admiral Kresh, Jonah began, eyes locking on the hologram as if sharing the bridge with him. Your forces fought with honor. Coordinated strikes that pinned our flanks for cycles. Reprisals serve no one, they breed the next rebellion. He paused, pulling up schematics mid-speech, multitasking feeds with a flick of his gauntlet, casualty logs, supply manifests, even Kresh's service record flickering in subwindows. Here's the bind, full disarmament, your officers integrated into reconstruction, under joint oversight. Imperium tech for your fringe world stabilizers. Prevents the quakes that sparked this. And a council seat for your faction, voice in the treaty's rollout. Kresh's crests flattened in shock, mandibles parting. You? Presumed to dictate from a consort station? This is no mere envoy's prattle. Jonah's lips quirked, not mocking, but connecting. Reading the Admiral's pride, the subtext of a warrior cornered yet unbroken, not presumption. Your logs show quake-damaged outposts as the flashpoint. We've jury-rigged human seismic dampers before. They'll hold. Tie it to the treaty and your people thrive, not scrape under boot. The council gasped, Varrock's scales paling as Jonah wove alien tech with human improvisation, spotting alliances in data streams they'd overlooked. Kresh hesitated, then clicked assent. Binding, transmit codes. The hololith sealed it, guarantees locking into the Imperium's net. Neris's core thrummed. Unequal. Where her commands bent wills through right and steel, Jonah unraveled knots with insight. Human endurance in negotiation. Holding the Admiral's gaze through fatigue that would slacken Katalra jaws, he juggled the chamber's stairs, the feeds, the Admiral's bluster without a flinch. Respect's forge burned brighter. This was no ceremonial shadow, but a mind matching her realm's intricacies. She rose, throne humming to full height, and extended a clawed hand toward him. Counselors, behold Commander Jonah Hale, not mere treaty seal, but consort recognized. His hand secured our victory's peace. His voice shall echo mine in governance. Gasps echoed, crests blooming in stunned array. Jonah took her gauntlet steadily, his grip firm yet yielding. Joint authority forged in that clasp. Progressives murmured approval, even Varrock's tail stilled, reassessing. Liz, perched on her dais alcove, watched with wide eyes, her small frills perking, a silent anchor steadying Neris's resolve. The vote commenced, holobeds glowing as councilors cast. Conservatives pushed motions. Delay ratification, bar the human from succession rights. The line must remain pure, one elder barked. Then, a shadow lunged from the rear ranks. Councillor Thorne, eyes wild, plasma dagger igniting as he vaulted toward the dais.
For the old blood!
The alien taints us. The chamber erupted, guards scrambling. Neris moved first, imperial reflexes uncoiling. But Jonah was faster, human adaptability a blur. He sidestepped into Thorne's path, one arm shoving Lys's alcove shield tighter while the other disarmed the blade with a precise twist. Engineer's grip on leverage, recon commander's instinct reading the arc. Neris struck in concert, her tail lashing Thorne's legs as Jonah pinned the arm. Together they slammed him down, guards swarming in. Breath synced, they rose as one. Jonah's knuckles white on the dagger's hilt. Neris's crest dominant. The chamber fell silent, conspiracy's embers snuffed. Traitor! Neris intoned, voice thunder-cloaked silk. Remove him. Guards dragged Thorne away, his snarls fading. She turned to the council, overruling with regal finality. Conservative motions shattered under her decree, ratification passed by acclamation, Jonah granted full consort rights, seat on the High Council, veto in military pacts, standing beside her in rights. He is no outsider. He is Imperium, partner in rule, guardian of our line. Varak bowed low, scales shimmering concession. As you decree, Empress. His clarity proves it. Jonah released a measured breath, meeting her gaze again, not triumph, but quiet alliance. Neris felt the shift settle. Propriety's shell cracked, revealing partnership's core. Public feeds blazed the scene, fury turning to awe, factions recoiling. Liz slipped a small claw into Jonah's free hand, trust's bridge complete. In that moment, amid the dome's ancestral gaze, Neris understood. She was born to rule, and learned that true power lay in finding an equal.